Hello and welcome to Tales from Reddit, and in today's episode we learn about how an OP evaded the police. Post by The Worst Unicorn. Since some of you asked about this story, I will provide one. It's a long one, so strap in. This wasn't today, but was about 15 to 20 years ago. One of my good friends was having a party. This guy threw epic parties that would last weekends, so it was always a good time. This being the middle of nowhere, USA, the event was outside in the middle of the woods. We pulled up our vehicle, pumped up some tunes, and started to drink. It's important to note that I rode with my friends. Had to have been about 30 to 40 folks there at the start. We lit a bonfire and settled in for a night of underage drinking, death metal, and other miscellaneous debauchery. Most folks had left when the taps ran dry, but the core friends were still hanging on till the sun washed over our faces. This was the norm, and we generally would sober up and go home. Just before 1 a.m., we ran out of beer and decided to make another beer run to town. It wasn't far, and we got there without issue. My friend went in to buy since he was already 21, and huffs it out to the car to put it in the trunk. The whole time he's doing that, I noticed the town cop drive past the gas station we were at, and is heading in the same direction our party was. He wasn't speeding, but I still had an odd feeling. Typically, small town cops don't move from their speed trap space unless they have a 100% verified incident going on, or they're picking up coffee/dinner. Before we left, I mentioned what I saw to my friend, and he tries to call his girlfriend, who was still at the camp. No answer. Calls again on the way there. No answer. We were not far from the camp at this point, so he pulls over and starts to discuss our options. We had to have been talking for all of about 10 minutes when over the hill ahead of us, we see the familiar red and blue lights coming right at us. My very inebriated friend decided to throw the car into reverse and is driving backwards on this straight loose rock back road. As he's backing up, we see another police car coming in from behind us. There was no escape. My friend yelled for everyone in the car that's not 21 to get the duck out and run. He was left alone in the car at this point. It was smart of him to do this. A DUI isn't that bad compared to contributing to the delinquency of a minor multiplied. I jumped out. We were surrounded by cornfields, so I just took off into the field. I have no idea where I was at, what direction I was running, or where the ducking field ended. I ran in far enough to feel comfortably hidden, but not far enough that I couldn't see/hear what was going on with my friend. The cops rolled up pretty quickly and did their thing. I couldn't catch everything, but I knew they knew there were more people in the car. Someone at the party must have mentioned who/how many of us were left. I must have sat there for over an hour as they processed him and called in a tow for the car. I watched them open and dump the beer out of the truck into the ditch. It wasn't long after 3 more squad cars rolled up. They get out with their lights and start combing through the field. They started shouting our names as they were walking through. That was when I knew I was ducked. Luckily, it was a breezy night, so it was easier to get through the field. It was also easy to spot where they were at/looking because they had to use their flashlights. Slowly, they started making their way towards me. About 10 feet away, the light stops and I hear, "Coming out, son. I see you laying in the dirt." So that left just me and one other friend out here, possibly. At this point, the other officers joined in the search. I kept slipping deeper and deeper into the field, and tried to keep at least 10 feet between us. At some point, I became uniquely sober. The alcohol had wore off, but the adrenaline was keeping me awake and alert. I was wet and cold, and had to take a piss. I thought about just pissing myself, but being arrested and covered in piss didn't sound like a good time. As we moved back and forth, I wondered how bored the country cops were, and how long they would look for me. I mean, these guys had to have a shift change at some point soon. I was so ducking wrong. We kept playing cat/mouse. I dare not run for it, for fear they may hear me run. They kept calling out our names and telling us they just wanted to take us home. I heard a couple more cars pull up, and some people get out. Then, I hear the distinct bullhorn whoop sound, and then a voice booms across. It was the county sheriff, and he warned us that if we came out, we would just be taken home. But if we made them keep searching, that they would call our folks, and they would arrest us. I knew this was a weak attempt to make their jobs easy, and they would arrest us regardless. I was really afraid of their threat to call my parents though. I wasn't a bad kid, because I knew there would be repercussions for bad behavior. The trick to being a good kid is not get caught. It didn't look good for my record at the time. I knew I had to get home soon, and the sky was starting to lighten up. I knew as soon as the sun was out, I would get royally ducked. I was close to the edge of town, and was walking up the first rail crossing. Who just happens to roll through? None other than the sheriff. By the time the sun is out, I am clearly visible. He just stopped on the tracks. I'm far enough away that I couldn't see his face, but he can clearly see what I was wearing. There was zero hesitation, and I bolted off the tracks into the woods. I sprinted as fast as I could, in the best direction I thought was my house. Now, if you haven't run through the woods before, you may not know how dangerous it really is. This isn't some romp through the forest. This was a mad dash of survival, hopping over downed trees, through running creeks, getting slapped in the face and throat with saplings, and getting caught on sticker bushes. I was very lucky to not run into any coyotes or snakes either, but I'm sure they wouldn't have ducked with me with how fast I was booking it. Soon I began to recognize houses of neighbors, then the back road behind the field that's behind my house. I felt like I was almost home free. I hadn't seen another soul since the tracks, and I could clearly see the roof of my house through the trees. I thought I should be cautious going up to my house for 2 reasons though. 1, the police might be waiting for me there already. 2, Mom. The house I grew up in was set back off the main highway, among a grove of trees and enveloped with fields. Only one of the fields was typically used for corn. The rest were usually soybeans or alfalfa. I walked my way around the perimeter and was looking for anyone other than my family, and there, in the driveway, sat the sheriff, right next to my car. Dad was outside his window talking to him. I knew I was ducked, but only with Mom and Dad so far. I made my way back to the house, where I knew nobody in the driveway could see me. We had a back patio, but the door was off to the side, and would have most definitely gotten me caught. I tried opening the living room windows. No luck. I tried the basement windows. Nope. I tried my mom and dad's bedroom window. Bingo! At that point, I just wanted to hop in the shower and was willing to get reamed by my mom to do it. I climbed in through the window as quietly as I could. After I was on carpet, I just stopped and listened. No sound in the house. The TV wasn't on. It was as if nobody was there in the house but me. I slowly tiptoed over to the door and cracked it open and listened again. My mom told me it was okay to come out. The door was open into the living room, so I had no idea what I would find on the other side of that door. I remember taking a deep breath and just accepting my fate and swung the door open. There sat my mom, alone on the couch. I remember her talking about how worried she was, and how she was glad I was okay, and that we were going to talk about this later. But I needed to go take a shower and change my clothes. It was an odd request at the time, but she wasn't yelling at me, so I didn't question it. I go take my shower and stuff my clothes into the attic. I remember it was almost 11 a.m., and I looked out the window and saw the sheriff was still outside. But my dad wasn't out there anymore. Mom and Dad yelled for me to come out and talk to them. They both told me how disappointed they were in me, and that this will never happen again. Spoiler, it didn't. After that, they told me I was home all night playing video games, and that I was never out last night. My dad and I walked outside to the car, and the sheriff asked me all about where I was last night and this morning. I told him the truth. I was home playing video games all last night. He said he had an eyewitness that I was out partying along with about a dozen other officers that were looking for me that say otherwise as well. I stuck to my story, told him which games I had played, and even what I had for dinner/snacks. I even told him what shows I watched on TV while I ate. It was a ducking miracle. After a 45-ish minute grilling, he cut me loose. Told me he's got nothing on me other than a couple of drunk kids that say I was there. He had already validated my story with my dad before. As we were walking away, he rolled down his window and told me that if I had been out there, and they would have found me, that this would have been a bad morning for my parents. I didn't get off that easy. My parents took away my license for almost a year, and I was only allowed to go between school, home, and work. I also baled so much hay that season, I'm still ducking itchy. My friend was ticketed with a DUI and had his license revoked for a year. The friend that was caught got a $200 ticket for underage drinking. The other friend evidently booked it home as soon as his feet hit the ground outside the car. His parents never knew, and he got away with it. And that's how I survived a manhunt. Oh boy, that was definitely a long one. OP did not let up on that. Yeah, so moral of the story, don't drink when you're underage, or if you do, don't get caught. Yeah, I mean, if I were him, and to be fair, I'm not really much of a drinker, but if I were him, the moment I got into that cornfield, I probably would have just booked it. Knowing how cops are, especially in the southern part of the US, they're not going to give up. If they have nothing better happening that night, and they've got a bunch of kids that they could potentially nail with drinking under the age, they're going to have a lot of fun. Or use it as an excuse to not really do anything else. So, yeah, the moment I would have been like that other kid. The moment my feet hit the ground, I would have been running for home. Just my 2 cents in the whole matter. But yeah, don't break the law. I am morally obligated to say that. Don't break the law. Anyhow, that's been another Tales from Reddit. Like always, if you like the video and you're new to the channel, definitely give us a subscribe down below and hit that bell notification icon as well to get notified of future videos. And if you don't mind also smashing that like button as well, it'll definitely help us out with that YouTube algorithm.